Well, good afternoon or early evening, depending on where you are. I'm Dallas Jones. I'm with Ecosense, and I apologize for the setup for today. I have a power outage at my house. Apparently, a truck ran into a pole with a transformer very close by and knocked out my power about an hour ago. And so I am at my local Starbucks, sitting outside, but I won't let that deter us. And hopefully, we can get through all of this without much problem. Let me see. Before I get started, I see I have Corey joined us. Corey, can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I can hear you just fine. Thank you.
Okay, just wanted to check in. I figured that would, before I run off and discover later that no one can hear me. So what we're going to talk about today is testing schools with the EcoQube Pro. The EcoQube Pro was actually designed with starting with an EcoQube that was modified with some firmware changes and software changes with where it could be used for large scale projects. And we're doing a lot of large scale school testing projects already, and the device has only been approved and out on the market for about 9 months. And so wanted to take a minute to show you a little bit about how the EcoQube Pro works and answer any questions you might have. So it's a little cube. It's just a tad over 2 inches cubed, and you can get these in a 4-pack, or for large scale projects, a 45 unit case. It starts and stops with a mobile app, and there's also a web dashboard to keep track of your records and quality assurance, your duplicate tests and so forth, where you can create not only individual reports for each classroom or apartment. If you're doing a multifamily building, you can also create a summary report. We'll help you put that together as part of the service. As I mentioned, we designed it for looking at a way where we could affordably use this technology for large projects like workplaces and schools and apartments, care facilities, military bases, and so forth. But we also have quite a number of home inspectors using it for single family testing, um, particularly in some states where the licensing requirements are a little more arduous than others. And because we are certified as a lab for this and do the data analysis, it makes it easier to utilize and be in compliance. Um, this is a real continuous monitor. In fact, it has about the best counting efficiency of any continuous monitor you could purchase or rent in this case, with the possible exception of a $7,000 or $8,000 Alpha Guard, which actually they've probably gone up since I last priced one. As I mentioned, it's NRPP approved, and we are an NRPP approved lab. This sensor tracks real-time data and provides hourly readings as well as an average for the time it's deployed. If you're familiar with the standards, then you know that as opposed to charcoal devices where you would place one, and if a test result comes back elevated, you would have to do a confirmatory test to confirm that indeed the apartment or the classroom was elevated. And you still don't have anything but a single number average for the time deployed. With a CRM, you can make a decision on a single deployment, so there's no need to do a follow-up or confirmatory test and still meet the protocols. And while it is a requirement that you do blanks every 10 locations, there is no requirement, excuse me, also that you do duplicates every 10 locations. There is no requirement for blanks or spikes. Let me clarify that again, since I misspoke. Blanks and spikes are unnecessary. You still have to do dupes, just because that's the requirement for continuous monitors. And this also eliminates a problem that you have with charcoal, for example, where you have to get back in a certain amount of time, or the detectors gain enough humidity during, or could potentially gain enough humidity that the lab wouldn't be able to read them with any confidence. You can set these to perform a 48-hour, a 72-hour, or a 96-hour test. And it will just stop at the end of that deployment time. If you would like to set it for 96 hours and you decide to retrieve it at sometime earlier than that, then you can do that using the mobile app. It's a real simple process. And the other thing is we take care of the calibration. So we will we calibrate these annually and make sure that any of the units that you're using are in calibration. If you're leasing them for the long term, then we will replace them when they're due for calibration, and actually send the freshly calibrated units in advance of you sending the ones to be returned, coming back to us. So as I mentioned, the sensitivity of the sensor is 30 counts per hour per picocurie per liter. So you get very accurate hourly data as well as the average. You save a lot of time, not only by eliminating the need for confirmatory tests, but you also don't have to put these in a box and send them off to the laboratory for analysis. Since we started selling these or renting these, I've heard a lot of stories, a lot more than I thought were happening out there, where testers were doing large projects and they put the exposed detectors in the box to send back to the laboratory, and because of weather delays with UPS or FedEx, or they even get lost sometimes, they either get to the lab too late for them to be analyzed, or sometimes don't make it at all. You won't have that problem with these devices. In fact, the results can be available within minutes of you stopping each test, which means you can do a a compilation of everything and do a summary report, right away, instead of having to wait for perhaps a week, 10 days or longer before you get the results and can even begin on that summary report to get it off to your client. As I mentioned, the mobile app works on both Android or iOS. You eliminate the need for paperwork. Each unit has a barcode. You can scan the barcode to connect via Bluetooth. It'll also just recognize anything in the vicinity. If you had more than one that was operating in the Bluetooth range, then rather than have to look to see which one, you can just scan the code and it'll connect right to it. The dashboard is part of your ability to manage projects. So you can do single tests under the single test menu, or you could do a project creation where you go in and let's say it's a large school. You can put in the name of the high school and then all of your and the address and so forth, and then all of your individual tests at that school would be stored underneath that project. You can not only assign your employees as testers. The way this works is you can actually send off sorry about that. You can send those off to send up an invitation off to a subcontractor, for example, by email. They would get the code to log into the app via email. they paste it in, and they can now work within that project to both deploy and retrieve devices. It's also not a problem if one individual placed and another individual picked them up, as long as they both were given access into the project dashboard. Then either or can pick up the devices and connect via the Bluetooth and stop the test and verify the conditions and so forth. We do have a way where as you set these up, you can choose whether it's a standard test or a duplicate test. If it's a duplicate, then we'll track those, and at the end of the project, you can put together a very quick quality control summary of the duplicate tests and the relative percent difference between those duplicates, so you can have that included in your final report. As I mentioned, we are a certified lab. We're also accredited by the New York Environmental Laboratory Accreditation Program. We're a New Jersey radon business. We're an Illinois measurement professional. I've completed all the requirements for Florida, and we just got a check off to them this week. So we'll be set up as a Florida business here as soon as I can get them to process everything. So we're good there. Same as in Iowa, we've completed all of that, and that check's already out, and so we should have our Iowa approval on their website at any time. One of the advantages of a continuous monitor over charcoal, obviously, is the ability to track the data from 1 hour to the next during the deployment period. And particularly in schools, you can imagine, if you're not already familiar with it, how the air handler could have an impact on when the radon concentrations are elevated and when they're not. So for example, perhaps they turn the large air handler on for the school in the morning at a certain time, and it brings in enough dilution air, ventilation air, that the radon concentrations come down within a few hours, and everything can remain low. And then at a certain time of the day, then that system shuts off, and that ventilation ceases, and the radon concentrations rise again every night, as you can see on this example. So having the ability to compare the hourly data with the air handler operation, occupied times versus non-occupied times, is important for a mitigator to make a decision. So with EcoQube Pro, you're going to have that information immediately with that first test. If you're using charcoal, you'll do one test and then do a confirmatory test if that one appears to be elevated, and then if indeed the second test confirms the first, then now you call the mitigator. And what's the first thing the mitigator is going to do? Is they're going to run a continuous monitor test where they can look at the hourly data and see the influence of the mechanical system on the radon entry. So with EcoQube Pro, you'll have that data from the very first test, and there's no need to continue with expensive testing afterward. These are very lightweight. The way they're typically installed in a school or an apartment is using an inexpensive command strip, the little poster size ones that are very small, and you put one on the back, and you can put it on an interior wall, and then just plug it in. The front, as you can see here, has a label on it that explains that there's a radon test in progress. This is a radon detector, and do not disturb the device. There's a little QR code on the front that if someone were to scan that with their phone, then it'll bring up all the information about there's a radon test going on in this location, and here are the protocols, and closed house conditions and so forth. So that's there and available on all the devices. There's also a little label on all of the adapters that warning this do not unplug. When we first came out with these, we had some people that were a little skeptical about whether they would get disturbed by somebody unplugging them. We've done about 30 something schools now, and we really haven't had an issue with that to be of concern. We had a couple on the very first school that we did up in Vermont, and that's what led us to put the label on the adapters. And when I say it was a problem, it was 2 devices out of about 100, and they were only unplugged for just a few minutes, and apparently it was a teacher who did it both times to plug in and get a little charge on the iPhone, and then she did that for about 20 minutes and then plugged it back in, and then class changed, and she moved to the classroom sort of across the hall and did the same thing for about 20 minutes. And so we still had enough test data for everything to meet the standard, but after we started making sure everyone was notified that it's very important to keep them plugged in, we really haven't had any problems. We have been doing more and more multifamily projects as well. We might have 1 out of 50 that occasionally gets unplugged in those situations, but it's very rare and not enough to disturb a project survey. So we'll assume that continue to assume that it's really not an issue. The deployment is real easy. We set it up where if you're in the project mode, actually in either mode, and you're once you connect to the device, you're going to put in the location ID, which could be the classroom number or the apartment number. And you do have a few items there that will default to whatever you put in the first time. So if you're wanting to do a 72-hour test, say, or 48-hour test on all the rooms in that school, then every time after you choose that for the first time, then it will automatically default to that, so you don't have to input it again. Same thing with the delay period. You throw out the first 4 hours of data. So if you put it on a 4-hour delay, then it will stay that for the rest of the deployments, unless you just want to change it. So you're really about all you have to do to set these up is put in the location after the first one, put in the location ID, and then it will typically, at the bottom, it'll let you choose standard test or duplicate test. So every 10 locations, you'll need to put a duplicate in. And so that's really about all there is to it. It's very fast to set up. We've been getting consistent reports that, a minute and a half is more than enough time to deploy, and they get retrieved in less than a minute. So we've been very pleased with that. And the radon reports for large buildings are for each individual location is a two-page report. It'll show a graph of all the hourly data as well as a printout of all of the data points, and where you can see what it's doing from 1 hour to the next. And then we also have we also have as I mentioned, a report for doing a summary, and that's really easy to have us do for you. We'll work with you to get that done, and it's a nice complete report that works real well for these kinds of projects. So one of the things I wanted to tell you is we have these available for in a 4-pack. if you're doing just single family tests, and you can get a 4-unit case for $30 a month per unit. So for 4 devices, you would spend $120 a month. We have a one-time activation fee that if you're it's $100, and if you're it's just for that one-time account setup. And if you're a member of InterNACHI or ASHI or a couple of other organizations, then you even get a little discount on that. For the larger rental, we can get them down to around $20 a month. But if you've got a special project and you just don't think you can keep them busy month after month, that's okay. We will give you a quote. So what I'm gonna do is with everybody who attended, I will send out, or registered, even if they didn't make it. I'll send out a request for proposal. And what I ask that you do, if you haven't used these before, is give me your project, what type of project it is, how many buildings are in the project, and at least the number of test locations that you would have in the largest building. And then send that to me and let me put together a quote. We have been consistently matching what you would spend for charcoal, particularly when you consider that you don't have to buy detectors for blanks or perform spikes. And we'll work with you where you can get a chance to try these out. My experience so far is that those who have tried them really like them. We're having success with some housing authorities. We've got 3 different housing authorities that are doing some testing now, where they have anywhere from 45 to 90 of these devices, and they're deploying them in different buildings as part of the housing authority. We've got in addition to quite a number of schools in Vermont, we've got a project that recently started in Iowa, and a very large school district in Colorado. So we're starting to learn more as we have these types of projects about, little things we can do to make it even easier for you. So we're very committed to make sure that this type of testing works for you, and is easy. And while you may have to just get used to it through that first test, if need be, we'll even send somebody, if it's a large enough project, out to your site to help your team through the process. If you are with a school district and you are in a state that allows school personnel to actually do the testing, we'll train the personnel on what the at least the basic protocols, and help determine what needs to be what rooms need to be tested, what locations need to be tested. So we'll help you design your surveys, and help you with, if you've got multiple schools, which for example in Colorado, I think that's going to be about a 7-month project because of all the number of schools they're going to be testing. We'll help you with determine what would be a reasonable schedule. Everything that we can do or anything that we can do to be of assistance, we're committed to doing that. So that's really all I have to talk to you about, other than answering some questions. So I'm going to take a second here and look over and see if anybody has entered a question. And if you raised your hand or put something into the chat, perhaps. Let's see, let me see. Oh, I must have been, see. You can see your, okay, no. If you'd like a full demo of how the app works and how the dashboard works, then if you would give me a call, then we can schedule a Zoom or a Google Meet, and I can pull up the dashboard and walk you through how that works, and the phone app as well. You'll find it's real simple. So give me a call. So with that, I think I'm gonna end our session. Thank you for joining. And you can reach me anytime at djones@ecosense.io. And see you next time.